Nigerian Bureau of Statistics says only 13 activities recorded positive real growth in the second quarter of the year compared to 30 in the first quarter. And I have with me Sam Chidoka, is the Managing Director and CEO of Kairos Capital. He joins me now to discuss some stories making rounds across the region right now. Thank you so much for your time on the show today, Sam. Let's track back into what the big news from yesterday, talking about the GDP figures coming out in Nigeria. And I'd like to get your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. So we saw the GDP figures, and we saw that GDP went down by 6.10%, negative in Q2. Well, I'd say that was not unexpected, in the sense that we know that globally in Q2 there was lockdown globally, and the global business affects also our GDP. And also within Nigeria, we had a lockdown as well. From March, in August, we had almost a total lockdown. So that would affect businesses, and that would affect productivity, and of course that would affect our GDP. So it was not unexpected to see that we have gone negative in Q2 2020.
All right, but quite a lot happening there. We still some sectors still manage to keep their head above water. Talking about the financial institutions, telecoms, agri, these ones manage to stay afloat.
Well, so you would see that the sectors that happened to keep their head above water were sectors who could rely on technology to do business. So financial institutions who were still doing their businesses with financial institutions via their applications. And then the telecom companies, during the lockdown, a lot of people went virtual in terms of business meetings and all of that, and that involved a lot of data and a lot of phone calls and all of that. So that seemed to affect those particular sectors. But if you see the sectors that really went down as well, you see that transportation suffered because people were not moving around. So all of this affected our aggregate GDP for Q2. So it was not unexpected that financial institutions would do well and telecoms would do well, but not enough to pull up the rest of the sectors that went negative.
All right, now let's move into another very curious story that I'm looking at here, talking about Côte d'Ivoire and what's playing out there. We're seeing the president, has picked up the form for the third term, and we're seeing protests continue in that country. Main opposition is saying that calling parties to unite against the president. What are your thoughts on this, and looking at the fact that this country is going to face elections very soon?
Well, so what is happening in Côte d'Ivoire for me is curious, and I think that it's something that find a way to address. So you hear a situation where the president is trying to go for a third term. This is a third term piece by the president. He's done the first, he's done the second, he wants to go a third term, and claims that the new constitution allows him to run for a third term. Now, this is some form of somewhat behavior that I find perplexing. If you've been president and you've run first term and second term, then you should give way to another person. And I think that the president of Côte d'Ivoire should look at Mali and look at what is happening in Mali and ask himself if what he sees happening in Mali today is what he wants in his country. Already there's been protests, and some people have died from those protests. And I do not think that political power should be such. A Nigerian president was quoted as saying that my ambition is not worth the life of anyone. And I think that should be the attitude that African leaders should imbibe. It's unfortunate what's happening in Côte d'Ivoire.